Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video, we got another news and rumor review to discuss, looking at some signings that happened for the past couple of days, some injury updates, and some trade rumors involving the Pittsburgh Penguins, New York Islanders, Toronto Maple Leafs, and Calgary Flames. We'll go to all that coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the Indian Hockey channel. Before we get in this video, don't forget to like this video and subscribe down below. Thank you for your support when you're able to with our viewers. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below, and don't forget to comment down in the comment section below so we can all discuss today's video. Now, we're going to start this video off as usual by discussing some signings from our past couple of days. We have had no official signings. We do have a couple of other smaller things. So first, Steven Lorentz, who's a former San Jose Sharks, I think he was a former Carolina Hurricane, played last year in Florida, helped them win the Stanley Cup. Winds up going to the Toronto Maple Leafs on a PTO. So that's a pretty good pickup there for the Leafs. Solid bottom six forward. Could help on the fourth line. Could be a decent spare forward. So if he's able to get a contract there, I think that would be a really good pickup there for the Leafs. So Steven Lorentz heads to Toronto on a PTO. We also saw Dominik Kubalik, who was one of the bigger name free agents left out there, sign a one-year deal over in the National League. So just like Zadina did a couple days ago, Dominik Kubalik is going to go to the National League. So Kubalik takes his talents overseas and hopefully he has a strong season there. Maybe comes back to the NHL next year, but interesting note there. And it sounds like this hasn't been confirmed or anything yet, but it sounds like Tyson Barrie will be heading to the Calgary Flames. It sounds like he'll be PTO. It might be just a regular contract that he'll be getting, but it does sound like Calgary will be taking Tyson Barrie to camp, at least on a PTO, potentially with a contract. That could be a really good fit there. I know the Flames don't have an overly great defense, and I think adding a top four right shot defenseman who can help on the power play and then be dealt to the deadline might be a really good smart move there for the Flames. So it'll be interesting to see. But Tyson Barrie sounds like he's going to be going to the Calgary Flames either on a PTO or as a signing. And we also saw that Steven Lorentz went to Toronto on a PTO and Dominik Kubalik signed overseas. So interesting signings from our past couple of days. Going over to just a really quick injury update here from our past couple of days. We saw two players suffer season-ending injuries already this year. One was Jesper Fast. He had neck surgery and he's going to miss the entirety of the season for the Carolina Hurricanes. That's a really bad blow there for the Hurricanes. Fast is a really solid third-line forward. He can also play fourth-line minutes. He can play up in the lineup if he needs to. He's a really good versatile forward, plays on the wings, so losing him for the entirety of the season is a really bad blow for the Hurricanes, especially when they already had a depleted forward group, so bad blow there for Carolina. And on top of that, we also got confirmation that Torey Krug, we talked about this a little while ago, that there was a possibility he could be injured to start the season. No, he's definitely going to be injured to start the season, and he's going to be out for the rest of the season. Krug still suffering from an ankle injury that was apparently been bothering him for the last 6 years, and he had ankle surgery, and he's going to be out for the rest of the season too. So the Blues lose a solid top four offensive defenseman Torey Krug. He hadn't been playing overly well the past few years. Now we know why. He's been playing injured, so that was a bad blow there for the Blues, and Krug's going to be out for the rest of the season. So Krug and Fast are both going to be out for the rest of the season for the Blues and the Hurricanes, and those are pretty bad blows for both those teams, so interesting note there. And lastly, going on to a couple of trade rumors. We're going to start here with the New York Islanders. Now, Lyle Richardson recently put out a new trade board, and to top his list, his first list of the season, he put Brock Nelson at the very top of his list. Now, this is not too surprising, but it's a little bit. So the Islanders are probably going to be a team who's competing for a playoff spot this year. I would expect them to be a team who is going to be interesting to watch. I don't expect them to make the playoffs personally, just me, but I expect them to be hovering around the playoffs, which is what they usually do. They either just make it or just miss. But if they're on the outside looking in or just on the inside, come to the trade deadline, is there a possibility they could trade Brock Nelson? I think it's a possibility. Currently, Nelson is entering the final year of his deal, has a $6 million cap hit, coming off some of the best seasons of his career, putting up, I think, like 25-30 goals over the past 2 seasons. So he's had a really good stretch with the New York Islanders, but he's also getting up there in age, and I don't think the Islanders want to sign him to like a 3 to 4 year deal, like $6 to $7 million. So I think there's a very likely chance the Islanders could wind up moving him. Now, I'm not sure exactly what the return they would want. My guess would be if they're moving him at the deadline and potentially retaining 50% of his contract, they'd probably want like a first round pick and something else, like a second round pick or a decent prospect or something like that. But I think there could be a potential option there for the Islanders to move Brock Nelson. Richardson definitely thinks there's a possibility with him topping his new trade bait board, but I think there's a very likely chance that we could see Nelson get moved, especially if the Islanders are also looking in when it comes to trade deadline. So we're going to have to wait and see. Still a long ways off. He's not going to be moved anytime before the start of the season, but if the Islanders aren't having an overly great season and he's one of their pending UFAs, I think there's a possibility there we could see that Brock Nelson winds up getting moved by New York Islanders. So it's a situation we're going to have to watch out for, but keep your eye on Nelson this year as a potential option there for the New York Islanders, according to Richardson, so interesting note there. Next, going over to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, Travis Yost was doing an article on TSN. He was talking about Sidney Crosby. Now, at this point in time, we've just entered the start of September. Sidney Crosby still hasn't been signed yet, which is a little bit surprising because a lot of people thought that by this time he'll have already signed like a 3-year extension with the AV of $10 million to remain with Pittsburgh. Now, that's led to a lot of people to believe is there a possibility that he could wind up wanting to sign elsewhere. As much as he's a really loyal person who wants to remain a Penguin for life, he's also a very competitive person, may want to win another Stanley Cup, and the Penguins are not an overly cup-contending team at this point in time. So, is there a possibility he goes somewhere else? Now, that's a possibility, but Travis Yost does say that there's another possibility that maybe he gets moved at the trade deadline. It will be a massive deal to see Crosby get moved. It's all in Crosby's favor. He has a full no movement clause, so he gets to call his shots. But if Crosby was to get moved, that could be an interesting piece of work there for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, Yost says that there's a possibility there that if there's no signing and he goes into the season at the very start of the season unsigned, then there's going to be some rumors that wind up popping up. And he thinks that if there's a possibility, maybe Crosby does wind up getting moved by the Penguins. Now, it's quite possible that even if Crosby would have gotten moved, he goes on a playoff run or a cup run with a team this year and then maybe signs right back with Pittsburgh in the offseason. That's a possibility, but it's a very unlikely possibility. I think Crosby still winds up signing his extension, but this is basically just a what if. So Yost linked 6 teams to potentially trying to get Sidney Crosby and saying that they're Sidney Crosby-like player away from being serious cup contenders. That's Colorado, Dallas, Detroit, Montreal, Vegas, and Winnipeg. Now, he says the 3 top Central Division teams are all one Crosby away from being legit cup contenders. Adding him to the Stars would be a fantastic top 6. A lot of people have linked into Colorado before if he was to leave Pittsburgh, just given his good relationship with Nathan McKinnon. On top of that, the Jets just lost a guy like Sean Monahan, so getting Crosby to be a 1-2 punch down the middle with Mark Scheifele would be a fantastic addition there for the Jets. So I can see why all those 3 teams would have some interest. On top of that, he links Montreal, saying that that could be a really good addition there for the Canadiens. However, I'm still not sure the Canadiens are going to be a really good playoff team this year, so I don't think it will make too much sense to give up assets to acquire a rental unless they're re-signing Crosby. Detroit makes some sense too. We know they like to acquire some veterans, and I think Crosby in the top 6 of Detroit could really work. And he also says never count out Vegas. Vegas always likes the new shiny toys that are on the trade blocks. They've tried for Carlson. They've gone guys like Stone. They've gone guys like Eichel, so could they try and add a guy like Crosby, especially after losing a guy like Marshall and Stevenson this offseason? That's another possibility that we're going to have to watch out for too. So it's very unlikely Crosby gets moved, but Yost says if it's a possibility and Crosby could potentially get moved, could teams like Colorado, Dallas, Detroit, Montreal, Vegas, and Winnipeg have some major interest and potentially be good landing spots for Crosby? But interesting to see. And if Crosby was to get moved, my guess would be the Penguins would be able to get like an asking price through the roof of like a first-round pick, really good prospect, and something else. So it'll be interesting to see. But with all the recent speculation about Crosby potentially not signing an extension before season starts now, that's a lot of people to believe maybe he potentially could get moved in season. So it's a situation we're going to have to watch out for, and I'd love to hear your thoughts if you think Crosby could get moved before the season starts. And lastly, going over to the Flames and the Maple Leafs. Now, when it comes to the Flames and Maple Leafs, there's no real speculations here. This is another thing that I was just thinking about. Now, we talked about in our last video how the Flames are currently open for business. They're looking to try and basically go through a bare bones rebuild. They're trying to make some moves. They're open to moving just about anyone. I don't think they're really willing to move any of their younger guys like Azeri or Perek or Coronado, Pelche, Wolf. Like, I don't think they're willing to move any of their younger guys, but a lot of their veterans they're willing to move at this point in time. So that's made me think, is there a possibility that the Leafs and the Flames could hook up on a trade that could help the Leafs in the long run? Now, we know that the Leafs currently have Mitch Marner entering the final year of his deal. He's not signed at this point in time. There's a lot of talk that the Leafs may not want to sign Marner on a long-term deal, and if that's the case, then they're losing a really solid top 6 forward. Now, I think there's a very likely possibility these 2 teams could hook up on a deal to give the Leafs some improvements both on the forward group and on the defensive end. Now, on the defensive end, I think they could be a really good landing spot for Rasmus Andersson. Andersson's a really good top 4 right-side defenseman. I'm pretty sure the Leafs were one of the teams who was linked to Andersson last year at the deadline before he never got moved. But Andersson could be a really good fit. Have him for this upcoming playoff run, the year after playoff run. He'd be there for the next couple of seasons. He could work really well in the top 4 that already has guys like Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Morgan Rielly and Chris Tanev. That could be a really good addition there for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I think it could be a really fantastic addition on the blue line. So I wouldn't be overly surprised if the Leafs did have some major interest in Rasmus Andersson, but the more intriguing piece I think they could also try and target would be Jonathan Huberdeau. Now, Huberdeau has not worked out overly well in the Calgary Flames organization. He's definitely not been the same player he was in Florida. Now, for players, sometimes transitioning from an Eastern Conference team to a Western Conference team is not overly great. Sometimes the style of play changes, and their style of play that worked in one side doesn't work in the other side, and we've seen that perfectly well with Huberdeau. But what if Huberdeau was transferred back to the Eastern Conference? If he was to go to a team like Toronto that already has offensive weapons like Matthews, Nylanders, and is a goal-scoring machine, could he wind up going back to his old self? Like, he played extremely well with Alex Barkov, but could he play really well with a guy like Austin Matthews? I think that could be a really good fit there for the Leafs, and Huberdeau, I think, in my opinion, could be the Marner replacement. Now, Flames to move Huberdeau and Andersson to Toronto would be an interesting move, and it would probably have to leave the Leafs moving some cap. So my question is this: could the Leafs acquire Huberdeau and Andersson from the Flames in exchange for some sort of a package of like Mitch Marner, Topi Niemela, maybe a Robertson or a Timothy Liljegren, and a draft pick, either like a first, a second, or a third round pick? Could that sort of a deal work? Now, this would be two scenarios in my opinion for this. One, the scenario where Marner gets moved to Calgary, signs an extension, probably something like a 6 to 8 year deal at like $11.5 to $12.5 million, and he's the new good young player there for the Flames that could really help them out with their rebuild. That's a possibility, but I'm not exactly sure if the Flames want to move one of their mistakes, which was giving Jonathan Huberdeau that big long-term deal, and then go out and sign Marner to another big long-term deal. So in my opinion, there's a possibility, I think, that if this sort of a deal happened, that maybe happens a couple of weeks before a trade deadline, and then the Flames flip Marner at the trade deadline for a bigger package. So I'm not exactly sure what sort of a way this could work, but I think if Huberdeau was to go to Toronto, I think he could refine his goal scoring ability, his point scoring ability that he had in Florida. I think he could be the new replacement for Mitch Marner, and he would come in at a cheaper cap hit than Marner already has. It would be still a very expensive contract. I'm not sure if the Flames will be willing to retain any sort of money to get out of the Huberdeau contract, but I think that could be a really good fit there for the Leafs. On top of that, they could get a solid top for the defenseman and Rasmus Andersson. For the Flames, they could either get a Huberdeau replacement in Marner if they were to extend him, or they will be able to move him at the deadline and get some sort of a decent return for him, which could lead to like a first round pick and a good prospect. So that could be a really good fit there for the Flames. On top of that, they would get a young prospect defenseman, Topi Niemela. They'll get another young player, whether that be defenseman Timothy Liljegren or forward Nick Robertson, and they'll be able to get a draft pick, whether that be a first, a second, or maybe a third round pick. But it'll be an interesting move in my opinion. I think Huberdeau could be a really good fit there in Toronto. I think Rasmus Andersson could make that defense a lot more lethal in Toronto. So it's going to be an interesting situation we have to watch out for, but I think a trade like that could work between the Leafs and the Flames. But it'll be interesting to see if it actually ever comes to fruition. So like I said, this is just me speculating. There's been no real rumors about these two teams, but I think with the Flames looking for a bare bone rebuild, guys like Huberdeau and Andersson could be really good fits in the Toronto Maple Leafs organization. So we're going to have to wait and see on that. But that's all I'm going to talk about for today. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on all this down in the comment section below. What do you think about the Leafs and the Flames? Could they hook up on a deal? And if so, would Huberdeau and Andersson work in Toronto? Love to hear your guys' thoughts on that. Do you think Pittsburgh winds up moving Crosby at the deadline? And if so, could any one of those 6 teams you mentioned be potential landing spots for him? Do the Islanders move Brock Nelson? And if so, what sort of a return do you think they could get? Plus, what do you think about the signings and the PTO updates that we've had from our past couple days and the 2 injury updates? Definitely love to hear your thoughts on all that down in the comment section below. That's all I'm going to talk about for today. Or to like this video, if you'd like to subscribe down below. Thank you for your support. We're going to love you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. Don't forget to leave a comment down in the comment section below so we can all discuss today's video. Also a blog talking about news, rumors, analysis, stuff for that, so check that out. Leave a link down in the description below. And I can't wait to see you guys all for the next video. See you guys soon.